Hello and welcome to another video from oorail. In this video we're going to take a look at Mk3 coaches. The Mk3 was actually designed for the Intercity 125 high-speed train, or HST, and there's an example of the HST here in the video. This is a class 253, which is from the western region. The Mk3 coaches were, like I said, originally designed for the HST. There was also a loco hauled derivative, the Mk3A, and the Mk3A was developed for conventional locomotive hauled use on the West Coast Main Line Northern Electrification Scheme, and it was introduced in 1975. The HST version showed up in service about a year later. Now, there's not really much physical difference between the HST Mk3 and the loco hauled Mk3A. Basically, the only real difference between the two coaches was that the electrical supply was different. The HST Mk3 coaches had direct three-phase, whereas the 3A took an AC or DC supply that was converted to three-phase. So unfortunately, the Mk3 from the HST and the Mk3A, Mk3B later on were not compatible with each other. So you could connect Mk3A and Mk3B coaches together, but you couldn't connect Mk3A or Mk3B coaches to a HST Mk3 coach. Basically, the electrical supply was not compatible. The other key difference between the Mk3A, Mk3B and the HST Mk3 coaches is that the HST Mk3 coaches do not have buffers. So if you happen to have Mk3 coaches from Hornby or Bachmann or Daypal, they typically come with the buffers, but they're not usually attached. So if you're using a Mk3 coach for a local hold service, you need to put the buffers on there to make it prototypical. Now, the Mk3 coaches were made up until 1988, and the last version of those, the Mk3B, were made from 1985 to 1988. And the difference between the Mk3A and the Mk3B was the Mk3B had some lighting upgrades, some seating upgrades to something called Intercity 80. I'm not quite sure what that means, but I'm guessing it was some sort of improved seating arrangement or seats, and there were a variety of other upgrades as well. So for the rest of this video, I'm going to really discuss the Mk3 coaches in terms of the HST. Before I do though, I will mention the variations that came for the Mk3A and Mk3B. So the Mk3A and Mk3B were manufactured in slightly less variants than the previous Mk1 and Mk2 coaches. And the Mk3A were manufactured in Royal, which is for the royal family to travel around in. RFB, which is a restaurant first buffet. Two variants of sleeper cars, the SLEP and SLE. And then First Open, which is FO, and Tourist Second Open, which is TSO. The Mk3B was manufactured in First Open as well as Royal. And there was also a brake First Open and a variety of DVT, which is driving van trailers, which I think were used for class 90s mainly. And that basically covers the local hold versions. We'll put together on the video a couple of possible configurations, probably on the scroll or in the bottom right hand corner. But for the HST, they were another different set of codes altogether. Basically, there was no TSO because it was initially considered to be sort of like a DMU. So the variations for the HST were TF, which is trailer first, TS, which is trailer second, and then later on they introduced what's called a TGS, which is basically a modified trailer second, to have a guard cabin. So the last couple of seats were removed and a guard cabin was installed instead. And so the TGS stands for trailer guard second. There was also a truck, which is TRUK, and that stood for Trailer Restaurant Unclassified Kitchen. Those were later done away and replaced with a second trailer second instead. You also had TRSB, which is trailer restaurant buffet, and then that was basically all that you had for the HST. So in the configurations, you basically had two classes. You had the class 253, which were used on the western region in a 7-car configuration, and then you had the 254, which was on the eastern region in an 8-car configuration. So the 7-car configuration class 253 would basically be, initially at least, it was a trailer first, then a trailer restaurant, unclassified kitchen or truck, a trailer second, and the TRSB, and then 2 additional trailer seconds. On the west coast, the truck was pretty rapidly replaced with second trailer second. So in the early 1980s, I believe the TGS was, the trailer second was replaced with a TGS at the end. So your ultimate configuration for the West Coast at least would have been trailer first, trailer second, trailer restaurant buffet, trailer second, and then the trailer guard second. And then in 1985, most of the East Coast had the truck also replaced with a second TS instead. Now the HST Mark III coaches were available in a number of liveries. We're just going to focus on the Intercity 125 when British Rail had them, because that's kind of the focus of my layout. Initially they were in that kind of blue and yellow and grey kind of a variant of the British Rail BR blue colours, and then later on around October 3rd, 1983, they came out with the executive livery, which is the version you see here on this particular HST. Of course, there was always variants, so you'd often have a HST that might have had the BR livery with the blue and the white pulling executive livery coaches. You may have had an executive livery HST pulling a mixture of British Rail blue and grey Mk3 coaches along with executive livery coaches, or sometimes just opposite colours and so on. So there's no real, it doesn't have to be perfect when you're modelling it. I've seen plenty of pictures with kind of a mixed bag of different liveries, especially around the 1983, 1984 region. So there were a couple of other variants. The Mk3, like I said, was manufactured up until 1988. However, there were a couple of DMUs that were based off of the Mk3. The Class 150 DMU, which we'll pan around and show you a quick pass through of here in a minute, was basically a variant of the Mk3. And also the Class 158 was basically a hybrid between the Mk3 and the Mk 4 coaches. So what we're going to do next on the video is basically just show you the various different coaches here on the HST, and if there's a variant using the same model for the loco hauled, I'll explain what the code is for that. But basically, the trailer second with the HST, they're kind of interchangeable with the TSOs if you put the buffers on them for the loco hauled, and then likewise the trailer first, you stick the buffers on them, and they're interchangeable with the first open. So I'm going to go move the camera and pan the HST down through here so you can see it. Okay, so the first car we have here is a trailer second, or TS. As you can see here, it's the Hornby version with the slightly smaller or shorter than the actual Lima or the later or 444 versions of this particular model, but it works just as well, especially with this particular HST and setup and so on. So we'll move on then to the next car. So you can see here the next car in the configuration is also another TS. If you're wondering why this particular car is raised, it does have a small problem. I think the frame is a little bit warped and I haven't had a chance to replace it. So it's not supposed to be raised up the way it is. It's just a defect with the actual coach itself. And here you can see the next two cars are also TS. So you can see I'm doing kind of a early 80s configuration, so around 1983 when the executive livery was in use. This was basically the configuration that was in place. You probably also have that first car, probably would have been a TGS instead of a TS, but Hornby didn't actually come out with a TGS version in the executive livery for this particular year and so on, so I don't actually have that. But here it works pretty well with just the TS. Okay, so this next coach is the restaurant buffet. You can see there it has the restaurant buffet written on it. It's got the red strip on one half of it, and this is basically the TRSB coach. And finally here you can see the next two coaches are basically the trailer first, and you can see that they've got the yellow mark above the window to indicate that they're first class coaches. And that's pretty much it. The Intercity 125 is on the side. They have running numbers without the region specified on them. I think the running numbers for these are 41121. That's basically it. So you can see there we've got the full formation, the TIA, or the starting from this end and going back down. We have the TF-TF, the TRSB, and then 4 trailer seconds. So this is the class 253 or Western Region 7 car configuration. Now the actual HST power cars and trailing car are actually called class 43s. But when they're in this configuration, it's a class 253 or class 254. Alright, so that basically wraps up the Mk3 video. One thing I am going to do is I'm going to let this run around the layout so you can see it a few times. And I'm also going to put next to it a class or Mk3 coach. The newer versions are a bit longer. In fact, I think I have the restaurant buffet one, so I'm going to go pull this back to the restaurant buffet so you can see the difference. So here you can see from one end here to the other end down here, it's pretty much lined up with the class 3 end here. That's the Hornby restaurant buffet 125. And this here is a Lima restaurant buffet 125, and I'll put it on the track here and you'll see that it is indeed a good bit longer. So there you can see it's about, I don't know, probably about this much, so probably about an inch and a half longer than the actual Hornby version. Now Hornby did retool their Mk3 coaches for the HSTs, so the newer ones like the OR 4444, the OR 4445, or 4446, and the new variants of them that are coming out next year, they're all longer. And the TGS version that came out is also longer as well. So if you're going to go with a new HST or you want to use new HST coaches, to make it look decent, or at least not kind of oddball because they're different sizes, you will want to make sure that you don't mix the older Hornby ones with the newer Hornby ones. Now you can mix the newer Hornby ones with the older Lima ones, and the older Lima ones have plastic axles and wheels, so you probably want to replace those with metal ones if you want something comparable to what the Hornby one offers. But basically, from a body shell point of view, these are pretty much the same as the newer Hornby ones. And here we have a Class 150, and it is one of the DMUs that are based off of the Mk3 style coach. As you can see there, the roof looks a bit familiar, and obviously it's been heavily modified, but you can see that there are some similarities in the body shell with the Mk3 coach.